Good afternoon. I'm going to take a few minutes to show how to do the first project in Unit 3. Unit 3 discusses using the brushes tool in Photoshop, and the brush tool can be used in a variety of different ways. Primarily, it's used to brush color over individual pixels and change pixel colors on a particular layer in Photoshop. That's what we most commonly identify our brush tool to do. But it can be used in a number of different ways, as you'll see in this particular video. We'll go over two ways that it's used primarily. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate that. So here I am in Photoshop. I have the home screen opened up. And the image that I'm going to use is the bearded gentleman right here. Now I could select it from my recent images or recent projects to use, but I'm going to go ahead and show it just from the open screen. So when you go to open it, you want to navigate to the folder where you downloaded the image from Classroom. I'm already opened up to that particular folder, but wherever you download, likely in your downloads folder. So if you want to look for it there. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and open up that picture by double clicking on it. Now, depending on your computer setup, you might have Camera Raw open up instead of Photoshop. Right, remember that Camera Raw always runs within Photoshop. But once again, we don't necessarily have to edit this particular image in Camera Raw. We're not necessarily here to adjust the exposure or any of the brightness levels to this. I mean, you could if you wanted to. I can see some areas right here that are a little bit darker. But I'm just going to go ahead and click Open so that this image does open up in the Photoshop workspace. Now, once again, this is about using our brush tool. My brush tool is kind of hidden behind some of my video controls here, but it's approximately right here, just under the eyedropper tool. Right, this is the eyedropper tool right here. Right, my brush tool is sitting right behind. Like I said, my tools, I can't put my mouse on it, but it's there. You can also use the shortcut, the keyboard shortcut B, which will switch to your brush tool. A lot of times it will look like your cursor will look like this little circle that you see on the image. But anyway, the other thing that we're going to take a look at is our quick mask tool for Photoshop and how it's a mode that kind of a tool that kind of changes how the brush works. So in this particular project, once again, our purpose is to take this black and white photo and to colorize it. So the first thing I'm going to do in order to do this is I'm going to add a blank layer. Now, if you remember, the reason we add this blank layer is something that we kind of discussed in Camera Raw, and this is just another technique to utilize what's known as non-destructive editing. If I put this blank layer over top, and once again I just click this new layer button right here, right, and I go to brush, right, notice how if I click this eyeball, my original image is completely unharmed. Right? I still have that original image to work with at any time that I want. So this new layers kind of acts like a plastic coating or a plastic sheet that just lays over top my original image so that the edits that I make do not actually change my original image. So I'm going to go ahead and erase all of that. Okay, so once again, I have my original image, and I have this protective layer, this layer 1 over top of it. So the changes and edits that I make with my brush tool are actually going to be done on layer 1, not my original image. So when you go to start, kind of the first thing that you might think that you want to do is find a skin tone color of sorts, right, to use as the color. Right. Once again, switching back to my brush tool, what I could do is I could very neatly kind of color over his face like so. And I get something like this, and I can kind of clean it up. But what you'll notice is that I'm not being very careful about where my brush goes. And you can see that some of it goes into his hair, some of it goes into his beard. Obviously, I covered his eyes. This is not exactly what I want at all. So that being said, the very first thing I'm going to do after adding my layer is, rather than use the brush to color, I'm going to use the quick mask mode to define the area that I want to change. So our quick mask mode is this button down here in the bottom left. It's a rectangle. And this is kind of, once again, like an on-off button that that makes your brush work in a certain way to define areas that you want to make edits to. So I'm going to click on this, and you can see that the button gets highlighted to essentially indicate that my quick mask mode has been turned on. I'm also going to use Command Plus to kind of zoom in on this area. Once again, I'm going to be brushing over his face. Now, the last thing I'm going to do before I start defining these areas is I'm going to double click on my quick mask options. Right? And as you can see right here, I have a couple of different options with the way this quick mask works. Right? For this particular project, I want to indicate selected areas. Yours, if you double click on the mask, might say be selected on masked areas. Right? For this particular project, I want to define the areas that I'm going to change. So therefore, I want to make sure that the selected areas are what's defined. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And then I'm going to start brushing over. Oops. Sorry, let me back up. I accidentally had it turned off. So I'm going to make sure my quick mask is on. And you can tell the quick mask is on because of the redness in this layer 1. Right here was just a little oversight on me. So right, with my quick mask turned on, I'm going to brush over these areas. Now, once again, you might notice that it's really hard to, even with this quick mask mode, it's really hard to keep everything limited to just his facial features, which is the part that I'm trying to colorize right now. I'm going to go pretty slowly on this. I'm just going to fill in the rest of it right here. Now what you have to understand is right now I have not colored anything. I've only utilized my quick mask tool, right? And once again, all of this area that's painted red is areas that I want to define as something I want to make a change to. Right? I haven't really changed anything yet. Right? Secondly, you'll also notice that once again, I'm kind of here in the hair areas, and I want to try to limit that as much as possible. You can see that some of these areas, like with this little strand of hair that comes in, right? Some of the hairs, and eyebrows that you see, it's going to be pretty hard to, work around those. So it's kind of okay if they're covered. But some of these outer areas, I can definitely clean up a little bit. When you're working with your quick mask tool, one thing you should understand is that you're working with one of two scenarios. You're either defining that area or you're leaving it out of what's going to be what's called a selection. More on that here in just a second. But the red areas indicate the areas that I want to work with. If it's not red, then I'm not going to be working with it, right? And you can see right here the colors that I'm using, black and white, are also kind of correspond with either using it or not using it, on or off. So in areas that I want to define and want to work with, I'm going to make sure I'm painting with my black on top, right? But for right here, I didn't mean to actually select these areas. I didn't mean to brush over these areas. So I'm going to switch my color. I'm going to press the X key and notice that puts the white as the foreground color. And what I can do is kind of rebrush over those to make sure that they aren't selected. Now, what also might help tremendously with this is if you decrease the size of your brush. And you have two bracket keys on your keyboard to the right of the P key. The square brackets will make your brush smaller with the left one, or make it bigger with the right brackets key. Right? So I'm going to make it smaller and kind of clean up some of these detailed areas. And once again, if there's some area that some things, like some of the hairs still in there, it's not the worst thing. We want to make as good of a selection as we can. I'm going to try to clean up these outside areas. Now, if you notice, I did color over the eyes as well. I definitely don't want those to be the same color as my skin tones. So once again, making sure white is what's chosen right here. I'm going to paint over these eyes so that they do not have the red markings. Once again, you'll have to make your brush fairly small. There we go. Probably get this eye just a little bit better. So now if I were to zoom out, I have this area right here defined as the area that I want to make a change to. And watch what happens. When I turn my quick mask off by clicking, once again, this rectangle, you can see that this dotted line, a lot of times this is referred to as the marching ants, changes, or that red area changes to an area bound by these marching ants. Um, this is known as creating a selection. And what's nice about a selection is that now, once again, with my brush tool, right, and go ahead and make it bigger. I'm outside my selection, nothing is happening. If you see that yellow, it's just a visual indicator that I'm holding my mouse button down. Right? But notice that no coloring is being done. Right? As soon as I bring my mouse inside the selection, it colors very neatly. There we go. The benefits of a selection is that it doesn't go outside. Right? Any changes that you try to make to your image, they will not be made anywhere outside the selection. Right? That's why I can be like very sloppy. I can just kind of go all around, and nothing will change. Okay. So now that I have that colored in, obviously this does not look natural one way, shape, or form. Okay? When you just have a flat color like this sitting on top of your original image, and once again, remember, haven't changed my original image at all. Once you have that area colored in, right, what we can do is utilize our original image, right, to essentially give some coloring and some lighting to this flat paint that's just sitting on top. Right? If you look down here in your layers panel, right, once again you should have your original image and then a layer 1 sitting on top of it. Right now it has what's called a normal blending mode, which means that one layer just sits right on top of the other one. Photoshop has a variety of blending layers that can actually blend with the image below it. Okay? Notice that every single one of these takes that tan color that I had and blends it according to a specific algorithm, right, for these different images. Or you know, it blends them in different ways to get a different effect. Okay? Now, once again, with this one, the idea is to make it look as natural as possible. Right? And which one looks the best will ultimately depend on which color you choose and which picture you choose. I'm just kind of scrolling through them, and I haven't clicked on any of them yet. But it's nice that it gives you the preview of what that particular blending mode will look like. Right, so for me, the one that seems just most natural is maybe this soft light. And it's actually blending these two layers together. I can see the facial features and the wrinkles and the eyebrows, right, rather than that painted color on top. Now, this might actually just kind of look weird because I still have that marching ants going on. Whenever you have a selection, in order to get rid of that selection, you need to press Command D, which gets rid of it accordingly. Now, some of the blending modes, right, and I don't need to have the selection active in order to change the blending mode. But some blending modes might look a little bit better if you don't see their full effects. So one thing that you can do is adjust the opacity so that it's not quite as detailed or not quite as dark. And sometimes the opacity or the naturalness, I should say, of the image might look better with a different um, uh, blending mode with a little bit more opacity or something. So, for example, I'm going to try this one. Right? That's obviously looks way too dark to look natural. But I can give it some color similar to that. Right? And that's adjusting the opacity way down. That's not too bad. But once again, everything, all of this depends on what color you choose, what image you chose, the features and the details around the image determines, you know, which different blending mode to choose, and maybe how far to adjust the opacity of that. Now, for the remainder of the picture, you want to just repeat that step over and over again until you have the picture fairly colorized. I would like to think that you would go as far as to color at least 3 to 4, 4 to 5 different selection or different areas. Like for this one, you know, keeping his hair gray and white would still look completely natural if you picture his hair being that color. Right? But other things you can color, I can color the irises of his eyes. I can color his lips. I can color some of his, you know, maybe his undercoat or undershirt, some areas of his coat. I can color the background, so on and so forth. Right? But from here, what you'll want to do is add a new layer for every color you want to incorporate. So now let's just say I'm going to do this lower lip. Once again, I'm going to switch to my brush tool. I'm going to turn on my quick mask. It's obviously a very small area. So I zoom in a little bit. And remember, in order to define your areas, you need to be painting them black. So I'm going to switch to my black. And color those areas accordingly. So a little spot right there that I could probably take out. And you want to try to limit it to just a feature that you're trying to color. Turn my quick mask mode off. You can also use the W key to turn on, or excuse me, not the W key, the Q key. Q will turn on your quick mask on and off. And there's my selection. So for his lips, I'm going to go with a shade of red. And then brush it in accordingly. And just like before, I'm going to go to a blending mode that seems to work. I'm going to go again with the soft light. I'm going to take that opacity down. Pretty good there. I'll do one more section. I'll do the background. It's going to add a layer. I'm going to try to brush in background areas. Oops, I'm actually painting, sorry. Quick mask tool. Try to stay away from his hair primarily. Now there's other tools that we can explore that kind of work around the hair. Right? If you get some of the hair in there, it's not going to be the biggest of deals. Once again, you want to kind of try to stay away from that. Ultimately, the algorithms that are run kind of take the lightness and darknesses out of the equation. Pressing the X key to switch to white, kind of clean up some of these areas. Honestly, you can be as detailed as you want to be. Something like this. But in combination with some of those other tools. Yeah, I'm making my brush really small to kind of and there we go. Got a little bit of this shirt right here. Go ahead and get that out. And something like this background could be just completely your artistic interpretation, right? But when I turn off my quick mask, once again, there's that selection for that defined area. You know, I'm thinking like a yellowish or a greenish tint. Make my brush bigger because I don't have to worry about how neat it is inside and outside the selection. And once again, I can change this to whatever I think looks good. I like this one up here. And once again, I can decrease that opacity. And there we go. And like I said, if I was doing this one to completion, I'd probably do his eyes as well, his shirt, and then maybe do his jacket all one color. You know, that in and of itself is about 4, and like I said, five layers or so. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 for his color. 6 if you include the eyes. But anyway, like I say, don't pressure to color the whole thing, especially one as complex as this. But anyway, this is just kind of one technique that can be used to bring color to a black and white image, right, using our brush tools.